Hi guys, nice to meet you if you're new here, nice to see you if you're not new here. How's it going? I'm Lara. Today's video, I actually got this idea from Larry Reads on YouTube. I know y'all know who she is. She did top 5 reads of the first quarter of the year. So I decided, why not do that? I'm currently working on a reading blog and I need something to kind of go up in between the reading blog. So I thought, perfect sit down video. But on top of showing you my top 5 reads of the first quarter of the year, I'm also going to show you my reading journal from the first quarter of the year. First quarter is January, February, and March. So I'm going to show you my top 5 books, show you January, February, and March of the reading journal. I feel like I have a lot of information at once. I think she got the idea from TikTok, but I will link her video down below so you can go and watch hers if you haven't already. But that's basically the intro, top 5 of the first quarter. I actually kind of had a bit of a hard time choosing my top 5 books. I automatically knew the top 3 books that I've already read, but I was trying to decide between a couple of books, but I think I decided on my top 5 reads. These are just books that made me feel, they're not all 5 stars. There's actually 2 5 stars in here, and then 2 books that I contemplate why I didn't give it a 5 star and if I should just bump it up to a 5 star. On my Goodreads, we'll talk about it. But I'll show you my books first, and then at the end of the video, we'll go in and do my flip through. If you care about the reading journal at all, why don't we just do this every quarter, top 5 of the quarter and my reading journal update. These will be in the order that I read them. So if you can already guess, top book of the year so far actually, but the first book I read this year that I gave a 5 star, my favorite book I read so far, and it probably will be in my top 5 of the entire year. It is The Jessed Heir by Sarah Hesham. This book, I loved it so much. I love this book so much. I think about it constantly. I think about the characters. I think about the scenes. I think about this book all the time. I read this book in a mood reading vlog, and I'm so happy that I actually picked this book up. They're so, I don't know, the annotations, I annotated so much in this book. Basically every single page is annotated, and I plan to go back in and reread this book and then re-annotate on top of my already annotations. 10 years ago, the Jessed Kingdom was burned down, the magic was outlawed, and the royal family was murdered, except for Sylvia. Sylvia was part of that royal family. She was the heir to the crown, and she did not end up dying. She got away from it. Everyone believes that the heir to the crown was killed. She's hiding from everybody. Nobody knows she has magic, but she's specifically hiding from the army of Nizal, who continues to go after the people of Jessed who did end up getting away, because again, the people of Jessed have magic. One day, the heir of Nizal is in her village and something happens where Sylvia accidentally reveals her magic to him. They end up making a deal that if she helps him, he'll spare her life. So much more in this book. It was so amazing, so well written. I fell in love with these characters. I fell in love with Sarah Hesham's writing. The Scorched Kingdom is rising and it needs its queen. And boy, oh boy, did this take you through every single emotion. When I read this book, I laughed, I giggled, I was kicking my feet, I was screaming, I was falling in love, I was bawling my eyes out. I enjoyed every part of this book. And I'm gonna reread it soon, and I cannot wait for the second book. This is a duology. So that's my first top 5 of the quarter. In that same video, actually, I wanted a book that was going to just, I couldn't just jump into another book after that. I had to find something that was not going to be difficult for me to read because I was just so enthralled in those characters that I needed something easy, a rom-com, something fun, something short. So I picked up This Spells Love by Kate Robb. And this is a little rom-commy book. It was so fun. Gemma and Dax are best friends. She gets her heart broken from her boyfriend, and they're kind of just spending time together. She's with her sister, her grandma. They're doing a little get-together one night because she's sad, obviously, and her grandma runs this little bookstore. She's like, oh my gosh guys, guess what? I got this cool little book. We should just have fun with it. It's a little spell book. And they're like, yeah, whatever, spells, who cares? No, spells aren't real, magic's not real. They go and do the little spell thing to see if it will help her forget her ex-boyfriend. In order to complete this spell, she has to kiss someone, and Dax, who is the closest boy to her, they end up kissing. And the next morning she wakes up, she's not in her normal bed, she's so confused. She goes and finds Dax. Dax has no clue who Gemma is. She was supposed to forget her ex-boyfriend. Not everybody was supposed to forget her. She's basically in this alternate universe where she never met her ex-boyfriend, so everything obviously is different because the way she met Dax is the same night that she met her ex-boyfriend. So everything's different. Such a cute book and such a refresher book to pick up after the Jessid era, and I absolutely love this book so much. I ended up giving it a 4.75 when I read it the first time, but I do think about this book quite often that I think maybe I should change my star rating. Maybe I should make it a 5-star because it was just so good. I think about this book quite often. This has been one of my favorite romance books this year. Oh, and I didn't mention this is also a debut author, and so is this book. This is a debut novel from Kate Robb, and I for sure will be reading Kate Robb again. I absolutely adored this book. I adored Gemma and Dax's relationship and their story, and the writing was just so fun. Kind of getting through these kind of fast, aren't I? I feel like I'm just yapping. Oh, I don't know if I've mentioned, so far this year I've read 24 books, and I think at the end of March I was at like 20 or something like that. So my top 5 of the first 20 books that I've read this year. My third book is Daisy Hates the Great Undoing. I read this book in finishing series. I'm in the middle of episode 2, which I know y'all want me to film another one, so we're working on it. But Daisy Hates the Great Undoing, I absolutely love the Magnolia Parks universe, specifically from Daisy's point of view. I do love Magnolia, but I'm a Daisy Julian Hates girly. I love their story, I love their point of view, and it's just so much more interesting to be in their point of view from the line of work they do. If you read it, you understand, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you don't know the Magnolia Parks universe, they are all in the same timeline. So you have Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates, the first 2 books, they're in the same timeline. Well, I mean, they're all in the same timeline, but Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hates are following the same exact timeline. You're just getting it from different point of views. And then Magnolia Parks A Long Way Home and Daisy Hates The Great Undoing are following the same exact timeline, just in different point of views. If you read Magnolia Parks A Long Way Home, you have these little things in there that you were needing Daisy and Julian's and all of their point of view. So when we finally got to this book and I was getting their point of view from what was happening in Magnolia Parks, I was falling in love. I was falling in love with these characters even more than I've already fallen for them. It's the great undoing of my heart as I know it, and I just cannot stop drooling over this man. He is probably one of my favorites. I just love him so much, and I can't really tell you much about this story because it is the 4th book in the series, but I love being in Daisy's point of view. I love being in Julian's point of view. I love the footnotes in this story. I know a lot of people don't absolutely love the footnotes in this book because it can be annoying to look up and down, but I feel like it just gives such like a realistic aspect to it where maybe they're talking out loud, they're saying one thing, but in their head they mean another thing. That's in the footnotes. I love that. These stories feel so real to me, and I say that every time I talk about them. The way that Jessa Hastings writes these books makes these people feel real, like you're actually involved in something and not just reading a story, and the way that she conveys their thoughts, it's not just like, it's so hard to explain the way that she writes and conveys how they're feeling and their thoughts and just how they speak. It's not for everybody. This is very toxic. There's a lot of toxic talk, a lot of toxic couples, people that shouldn't be together, and you're rooting for some people and you're wishing that other people would kind of just stop talking and go the other way, that they need to be separated. Very toxic things happen in here, very crazy things can happen in here, sad. There's a lot of different emotions that you can feel and come across when you're reading these books, but they're just so good, and the ending really got me. I need to read the next Magnolia Parks book, but I don't own it yet. This was great. I loved this story. It really had me going. It really got me in my heart. It really did. If you read Magnolia Parks by chance and didn't love it, I highly recommend at least giving Daisy Hates a shot. I read Magnolia Parks the first time. I was like, okay, it's okay. And then I ended up listening to the audiobook. The people who narrate Magnolia and BJ really made me see it differently, and then I went into Daisy Hates and I was like, okay, wait a minute, the series is actually kind of fun. If you didn't love Magnolia, I either say to listen to the audiobook or to read the next Daisy Hates book. Love. That was not a good heart. Love. I just realized that's not part of the first quarter. Fourth one is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I just read this book not too long ago. It was in my reading 200 pages a day for a week last month. I think it was at the end of last month. I don't even know how to tell you about this story, but I loved it so much. And this is another book that I didn't give a 5-star that I think I should give a 5-star because I loved it so much. I have read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. You're supposed to read Caraval first and then go into that trilogy, but I read it first. And going into Caraval, before I read it, a lot of people said that they didn't really care about this story, that they liked Once Upon a Broken Heart way better. And so far, I've only read this book, and I think I'm liking this a little bit more. And they are very different. They are very different stories when you compare Caraval to Once Upon a Broken Heart, the first book. They're very different stories. They're not the same. There's like magical elements into it and stuff, but they're different stories. But so far, I'm liking Caraval a little bit better. That might be on the wrong side, but I love this story a lot. This is about Scarlett, who loved Caraval since she was little. She's never seen it. Caraval's kind of like it's a game that comes around once a year that you can either participate in or you can watch it. Scarlett has loved it ever since she was little. She's been writing Master Legend since she was young to try and get him to come to her island so she can watch it, because she's never left her little island. Her father has set her up with a man for her to get married to. She writes one last letter to Master Legend telling him that she's set to get married and she would really appreciate seeing Caraval, but this is her last letter to him. And he writes her back and says, hey, here are 2 tickets. You should come and watch it with your husband. Scarlett has a sister who she loves with her entire heart. She will do anything for Donatella. She ends up going to Caraval with this mysterious sailor, and she's like, I'm not going to stay here for long. I've got to go home because I'm getting married. I will stay here for 1 day. So I'm not playing the game. I'm only watching the game. And then she learns the objective of the game is to find her sister who was kidnapped. Now Scarlett's got to find her sister and get back to her island to get married. And so much happens in the story. So much craziness. So it's crazy, and it was amazing, and I loved it. And I could talk about this one all day as well. Can't wait to read the rest of the series. It was so good. So I just realized that the book I chose for my 5th book is actually a book I read in April, so I can't pick it because April's not included in the first quarter, it's included in the second quarter. So I need to pick a different book that I read. I have a book. It wasn't a hard pick because I did really enjoy this book as well. It was just another book was a little bit better. It is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is actually the first book in the Part of Your World interconnected standalone series. I read this second because I read Yours Truly last year. But I read this book in a weekend reading vlog while I was in a book slump, and it really helped me start coming out of that book slump. This is following Alexis, who is an ER doctor who is going through something in her personal life. She ends up in this little small town, and Daniel is there. They decide, how about we do something casual, nothing serious, because I'm way older than you. This is an age gap romance. I'm way older than you. We can't do anything serious. Something's happened in my life that I just cannot do serious right now. Let's just have some fun. Parents are these like world-renowned surgeons. They have such a legacy, and she's not following that legacy because she's an ER doctor. That's what she wants to be, but they see her as you're just an ER doctor. She's having a hard time with Daniel. He doesn't fit in her life. He's very different and just doesn't fit. He's a carpenter, he has tattoos, and he just doesn't fit in her prestigious life. His story was beautiful. The writing, Abby Jimenez's writing is beautiful. I've read the entire series now, and not one book was terrible. They were all so amazing, and I need to read more of Abby Jimenez's writing because I just loved it so much, and this helped me with my little slump that I had. These are my top 5 books of the first quarter in 2024. I read some really good books this year, a lot of 4-star books this year. I've only had a couple of 5-star books, but a lot of 4-star books, a lot of amazing books. I've also done some audiobooks, which I had a lot of fun doing. Audiobooks are so great sometimes when you're not in the mood to read, but you still want to get reading done, so you're listening to audiobooks. Now we're gonna hop into my reading journal flip through for the first quarter. And that's that. Okie dokie. This is my reading journal. It's from Notebook Therapy. I use quite a few things on it. Just a couple of things are the mild liners, Sharpie pen, washi tape. I have so many things that I use on it. I also realized by watching Destiny's video that I called these midliners as well, and they're definitely mild liners. There's an L there. That's funny. So if you watch my other reading journal video, just ignore that. Thank you. And we're just gonna do a little flip through. I'm gonna explain something. 2024 reading journal. I've read 24 books. Like I said, I've only given a couple 5 stars, but sometimes I think about other books that I should have given them 5 star. But this is what this looks like. I'm gonna have my reading goals. This is my little library that I made. I have a little key for everything. It's definitely filling up, and I'm gonna probably have to make another one, but this is that so far. This is my series tracker. Not every single series is written down on here, but I have quite a few series written down and filled out, and I've finished quite a few too. My 24 books in 2024. I've done 6 so far of the 24 books, and I try and have them match the spine just a little bit. They're not amazing, but I try. This is my book of the year. At the end of every month, I write what my favorite was, and then they are going to end up competing eventually for the best book of the year. Here's bingo. I just copied this off of Pinterest, and I've just been filling it out as I read, and then I write what number book it was of the year that I read it so I can correlate them. My DNF graveyard. Book awards are for the end of the year, so I haven't filled that out. And then my A through Z reading challenge. I've done quite a few. I have not been very great about filling these out, but these are just like quotes that I absolutely love. I have quite a few that I do need to fill out, but I just didn't want to fill up all of them for the entire year, but I could always make another page, so I need to go through and do this. This is a quote from the Addicted series. These are my stats. For at the end of every month, I write down just like how many pages it was, what form of reading it was, and then how many books I have on my physical TBR, and compare them to compare. Genre tracker and monthly tracker. This is just how many like romance books I read. Obviously, I've read way more romance books than I read anything else. And then this is how many books I read each month. Not very pretty, but you know, it's tracking. And then here is my log. This is just how I log every single book that I've read. I have my Goodreads and stuff, but I log every physical book as well. Or I log it physically as well. These are my books hauled. I have another key down here. So this color are new books. The light color are books that I bought pre-owned, and then my dark color are book of the month books. Because I feel like those are a bit different, you know? There's also a page that I haven't completely filled out. This is my Hall of Fame page. They're just like some favorite books that I've read that I obviously haven't filled out because I just talked about my top 5 books and only 3 of them are on here. Debut and indie books. I also am not keeping up with this very well. This was my January cover page and calendar. These little lines are when I finish books, but I changed this to in the month of February. These are the books read in January and their star rating. And then like I said, The Chesed Air was my favorite book. So these are just a bunch of quotes from the book, and I printed out pictures that I found on Pinterest or on the author's Instagram. Slay, am I right? February cover page and calendar, and then this is how I started tracking my reading and how long it takes me to read a book. I also write when I post a video just so I can keep track of how often I'm uploading. This is, see, I changed February from January because January was like the first time actually figuring it out. So I wrote like my TBR and I crossed them off as I read them. I have a wrapped reading page, so I read 86% romance and 14% fantasy. I had 71% 4 stars and 29% 3 stars. An average rating of 3.9. 86% physical books, 14% that weren't physical, and then I wrote the format that I read them in. And then this is my wrapped like books read page. These are all the books that I read in February with their star rating. And then I have my addicted page. So I have Addicted to You and Ricochet because these were my top books of the month. And I just, of course, printed out pictures and wrote down quotes. And then this is March. This one is so pretty. I love this color scheme. I love this. Got it off of Pinterest. Most things come from Pinterest. And again, I write like how long it takes me to read a book and when I post videos. My TBR, I read one book off my TBR in March. This is my Wrapped. 80% romance, 20% fantasy, 80% 4 stars, 20% 2 stars, 60% physical, 40% not physical, a 4.1 average star rating, and then my format. These are my books read. I read 5 books in March with their star rating. This is my Daisy Hates page with pictures and just a couple of quotes. I didn't want to overdo it because some of my other ones are quite overdone. And then Caraval, gorgeous picture. I saw this on Stephanie Garber's Instagram. It's fan art. It's literally so gorgeous. And then some other pictures and some quotes. And then we get to April. So there's that. Alrighty, that's the first quarter of the year. Just a little first quarter wrap up. I also want to thank you for being here for the first quarter of the year. I have gained so many subscribers just in this first couple of months of the year, and I am having so much fun recording videos. I'm currently working on a couple of vlogs. They're just taking me a little bit of time, so I thought I would do a little sit down video. I love showing y'all what I'm reading and talking to y'all about books and just making my personality books, you know? My entire personality is books. So let me know some of your top books of the quarter if you have any. Other than that, I hopefully will see you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching.